each nation, each culture has something inherent to it in relationship to the negative value nature progressions that we have methodically forced only realized upon us all, and with our standards and treatments of all that entertained within differences, not by accident. And it's no one's fault. It's a fault of everyone with facts treatments, not by accident. It's with the science's fault. So, plus my hair's messy, so I put this thing on. So I hope that no one thinks that it's prejudice, especially because China is such a great, in Asia, Japan, they have things that are sacred to our species that are preserved better there than here. And here, there are things that are sacred to our species that are preserved better here than there, not by accident. But we share the same laws, top down and bottom up. You know, in relationship to Flint, Michigan water crisis, for example. Not even to the crazy things with all the nuclear technology, all that. With Flint, Michigan, the water crisis, we can't. In other words, law is not looking after us as its children, or with enough love as our children, because business it never defined for us. Real law outside of courts should be able to be defended, unchanging, positive. We know it's not unchanging, positive with the Flint water, with the water on poverty lost. The reason we can't just free the law, which is free speech of truth, is because the truth is being challenged by top down lies that can be revealed on the outside of courts, but are being forced, negotiated in courts. And this being a reaction nature in relationship to methods of evidence fabrication that are methodically only letting our police ignore certain facts. In other words, they're forced to share policing nature with other nations of police. And with this is being the exploitation of finite facts. And with that is the active exploitation of it in ways with systematic evidence fabrication, causations, methods, and motivations in relationship to natures of organized crime that everybody missed. In relationship to our hospitals, and with all that connected to the courts, and with all that connected to the homeless, for example, with the edge where terror grows, where desperation is. Not only where desperation is, because it didn't leave proper education for the people and to be able to communicate out of it, but it left everyone top down, incapable of hearing and pretending that other people can't hear. You know, I mean, how many years have the people in power been asking for means that they call food deserts? You know, it's insane, because then you measure entertaining insanity. Watch out, I'm not going to turn. It's a great term, but because it points out now I can communicate what someone else is trying to communicate, but no one's hearing, and the solutions are all. So then they invest people with motivations to make it halfway, which is, in other words, then you're going to self-defend that, which was better than before, but it's still, it's disgusting. It's not top-down law being let voice. It's because we've only been led to realize it through business, and that business with competition, and that competition with wars at its back, now with bombs at its back, because the nature of war progressed. A nature of war that method with colonization and more simple, but more complicated, but more extensive and more sophisticated than colonization that was with it, still with it. We have a shared enemy. Well, this is not being led by the sciences, interscience, and with their industry positions, with the religions, and with the nature of human facts treatments. So the Native Americans, at the same time, They want a pipeline stopped. Not only just because it forces the whole nature of the land cut off and then defended, denatured, forcing it to stay denatured. In other words, too many years. And then they have to debate about debatable things because they're not allowed to use everyone. Like in Flint, Michigan, because we forsake. It's not when I say that the truth is a sequenced nature and native rights come first. That doesn't mean just agree with the opinions of every Native American or anything. It means to understand that that's the truth, unchanging ways. In other words, if we don't understand that as the law, that's in relationship to our laws, in relationship to the actual logistic defense needs of Flint, Michigan's water before this happened. And see, then there are self-defense natures in relationship to her evidence fabrication natures only they realized, justifying standards led up to them, in relationship to business. Because business is a physical delusion only that shared with mass indifferences. For example, in relationship to the war on poverty. And this is how how correlation works. And this is how the law is supposed to work. This is what religions are demonstrating. The reason they can't is in relationship again to the pressures and the resources being attached to shared evidence fabrication natures. Top down, so that forces it bottom up. And that forces that to tell itself, to have to tell itself to tell lies in ways that are perpetually yet stayed. And those lies and the nature of logic and what set that up to be self-defended is exploited peripherally, intercity, not just interstate, in relationship to databases. And this is in relationship to how they use databases against every colonist, against a Native American, against every Native American. They, which was harder. That's what they did. Even without computers, they made so many terror laws that even if you broke some of them, you're going to be, when you're communicating, you're going to be a liar. You're going to be an evidence fabrication nature, forced political theater, forced indifferences. And because that's the only terror that was left, not just by the law, by the sciences that only let that law trained, and not just by that, by what was there before that. The method that was there before that for that. And that wasn't for justice. That was to perpetuate a breaching method, an evidence fabrication method. And this is with our treatments of the laws. So how does it do that? By having us all only realized entertaining the law, having to entertain ourselves as evidence fabrication natures in justification of only realized delusion propagation rules and the exploitations of that through all agents of innocence per the sciences and all database relationships, campus relationships, books, conviction natures only realize. So it's not to say, so the inherent human nature is forced to be trained to be an indifference nature. And that's the problem in relationship to treatments of the law. So all at once. So the courts are never going to be able to settle this unless we admit what our nations share and with the sciences. In other words, with all the convictions and all the agreements, with all the laws and all the statutes. Of course it's a headache. But it's only a headache because it's not revealing perfect positive, unchanging what is real law, which is actively in demonstration. So then then it should be no problem at all if we can admit this. Then everyone stays where they are. I heard someone say this before too. I heard someone use that. They say, all we're saying, someone was talking about poverty, I believe they were talking. They said, all we're saying is everyone stay with that and we just want to make it better. And that's right. That's evolution. And then the people who say they don't listen, because they want them to listen to nonsense and to lies and The delusions juxtaposed as convictions with physical facts. You know, it was math too. Math is peripheral. You know, what is essential is language and law. Understanding this, because understanding what is unchanging positive, understanding correlation, how the human mind is a correlation nature, how the human nature is a correlation nature. All the parts of our body, all the cells of it, all the bodies, the individual bodies within our one body share one positive identity to correlate by, because it's actively in demonstration to us, because it's actively coming through us. This is more plausible. Exactly what the religions are talking about. Like, for example, with the Old Testament, with the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's this is not to defend. When they say to defend one name of God, in other words, this is cipher. There's one positive, unchanging nature of positive. The only value that is unchanging. All other values are involved with it being an active demonstration of and to itself. You know, there's one positive identity and demonstration of it to itself, to us. And everything that is not that, we long away from it. And everything that could be that, we long towards it. That's value A. A is that identity we share. And as sharing it to show how we are correlation nature as the same, you know, when we are value, we are only the shared value as A and as W, for example. I mean, as O, as omega. When A is alpha and O is omega, in relationship to how they are radical. How they are radical is in the nature of consciousness, with perception. The invisible, unchanging, positive, actual laws, there or not. That's what makes the difference between positive or negative value nature. If it's positive, it's there always. It's not there most ways, but not some. So when we look at poverty, always positive value is not there always, but just some. But people are claiming it's there. They're claiming it on people actively exploited by poverty, because this is bottom-up laws. And this is in conjunction with top-down laws in relationship to treatment of facts and time impositions and retreat nature reactions, not by accident, only let realized, only let self-defended for the nature of what the sciences train as the industries of criminal justice, for example, of all legal natures, justifying predatory litigation nature roles, not just in the modern. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police form. I'm not a criminal. Not just in the modern, but with American history, with ancient history, and with convictions. So I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings when I say in the videos. We have only let realized in every nation hurt conviction natures, indifference natures, evidence fabrication natures. For example, that's why they have the problem now that wasn't foreseen with Flint, Michigan, and that's why it was always blamed on other things, on lies and on delusions. Again, as measured evidence fabrication natures in relationship to that, at the same time with all the natures of the impositions upon not just the Native Americans, but that company too. But I mean, in the earth too. And see, that's the one that's most important, because the earth was the only thing that could demonstrate that without that, that's what correlation demonstrates positive value nature progressions. See, delusions, evidence fabrication natures will only let realize incomplete and predatory legal nature justifications will only let realized So they tell everyone that if you want paradise, you go to a vacation. But even that is denatured. It's only realized denatured. Native Americans don't even remember all their history because they were taking the retreats. They were taking their landscape was denatured. They were divided time-wise, education-wise, nature-wise, methodically, consciously, willfully, not by a nation, by a system between nations. It had them all, only has everyone Oz justifying insidious narratives with this, only realized to histories shared differentially fraud to the same ends. It's not one side that can be blamed, but all sides have only been let to understand the identity and relationship to contrast, not by accident. Measuring and maintaining everyone measured only let realize is evidence fabrication natures. Because we are correlation nature only, otherwise we're negative value nature. So we have to be a correlation nature. We have to admit and develop evolving ways to actively make the most sacred things like water. They should have not only have backups and be able to adapt, especially with all the crazy entertained nature of legalized pollution and stuff like that. And then these natures of sciences want to pretend that they're experts capable of speaking for the environment. You know, there's more examples of environmental damage, species extinctions, than there are moments in the day. It's ridiculous. So water is essential, not by accident. Everything is a system that when its nature positive, that is unchanging, is not let. Negative value nature progression is demonstrated. So what this evidence fabrication method knew was that we were going to justify. We were going to be evidence fabrication natures. And with her progressions to all areas being exploited by predatory, only let realize predatory litigation natures and legal natures, with roles with what they don't even understand. Just exploit. Because that's what only let was there to let exploit. Not by accident. Everyone, even individuals, only let to understand identity through contrast. That's exactly why they put color with the law, because they wanted us only to understand contrast, not correlation. The ancients understood, before even war, demonstrably, that we are a species because we're a correlation nature. They knew the world was round. There are proofs. It's more plausible. And not only is it more plausible, but the criminal insidiousness narratives pretending that it was flat, they're still insidiously forced to delusion propagating, and worse, with narratives tied to indifferences, actively exploiting such with needs to get away with standard lies. Sharing standard means to get away with standard lies. No one sees it because everyone was raised only justified as evidence fabrication natures in what relationship to proper law and proper morality. Even morality only being allowed, realized, taught through contrast, not from its own substance first. Speak and with it and speak. That's it. You know what I mean? To explain it, you have to explain first what is truly free, which doesn't have to even. It's communicating about how to keep itself free. It's communicating what evolution is, which is independence. The freedom seeks an independent nature. That is its own nature that we share. And it's in demonstration of this all ways, but for obfuscations that are interscience and interscience, and not by accident. This whole species is in Oz, trapped by what only let us realize to all areas of the species as evidence fabrication natures, including using only let realized landscape theater, denatured landscape, per method of having everyone only let realized justifying related negative value nature progressions. In demonstration of this, which existence does when its nature is not let, always. In other words, for its body Earth, we're its virus. And we have one with, in linguistic fields we lost to, interscience fields we lost to in the American Revolution. And because we lost to it, and how we lost to it in the Revolution, and what we lost to, blamed the Revolution as a claim, only let us understand it as a war in relationship to England, differentially bottom up and differentially top down. So top down memorizes most of the facts, but they have the same physical delusion. You know, we lost on many fronts in the American Revolution. So top down can't see how bottom up poverty. We can see that the lies being told actively, and their exploitations. But truth, there's no place to report it, and these are connected to all these crimes before they happen, because they're connected, and how they're connected to no one be able to report it, and how they're connected to to methods that if someone tries to report it, because they don't understand what they're reporting, it adapts. Because how it's through only let realized evidence from her conviction nature exploitations of it, with all legal natures, with the entire species, even ones who aren't formal legal natures, only let justifying and entertaining with logic indifferences, calculating the perpetuity of nature of humanity that is not humanity. It's criminal influence. But we can't have our courts free if we don't have free speech, and we can't have free speech if we don't have a place to have not unaccosted, unaccosted ratiocination, which doesn't attach passions and attack people for pointing out the proofs of her evidence fabrication natures, her conviction natures, indifference natures, business exploitations of poverty, and of worse, business. So people they want to go to court because this is where all this was legalized. It was only criminally legalized. So we have what is worse than anything is criminally legalized persuasions, because then with the sciences especially, it's too insidious. They exploit all ages of innocence, especially regarding innocence with our most exploited areas. The same people that are exploiting all ages of innocence in the suburbs and intercity, methodically, right through all these self-defended types, self-defending isolations from each other, per the nature of how we were forced to share policing natures, legal nature agreements that were breached, to say the least. They were meant to force us only let realized, measured, entertained, only capable of the discerning difference through contrast, not through correlation, being predatory against our own people's needs, with the proofs of miscorrelation, only let realized. Sociology is with terror methods, insidiously. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a criminal. God help us. They isolate parts of the terrors, and on the surface, they held the final acts the pathology of girls getting exploited at campuses. But they don't talk about all the other things, like the men getting exploited. They don't talk about, the kids. They don't. There's evidence fabrication, pathologies, lie progression, cover-ups using our campuses through time, and that's connected. How that's connected, for example, they have off and on campus housing. They have connections and exploitations of that. But if someone gets when these girls get hurt off campus with CCSU, they say, "Oh, those are different police though." But they have intercity connected police with roles with evidence fabrications exploiting that. It's a terror method. So, and they make laws, but they're not working because outside of court, aren't let to speak, and they're only defending type expert lien, not by accident. And we have systematic database, terrorists never charged, not by accident. So Flint, Michigan has a water problem, not by accident. They have the shooting problem in Detroit, not by accident, right next to Chicago, where Scruff McGruff was supposed to change crime, not by accident. They have all these problems. They failed. These all ages of innocence, especially young, are being used for the maintenance of lie progressions that have been through time with methods using them and related narratives forced to courts through them to further illusions juxtaposed to the crime natures prompted to them. Allah, A'udhu Billah, Bismillah. They go after. They tricked everyone to go after radical Islam, which is not even a real truth, and forcing this interscience lies and delusions, physical delusions, accosting what the Quran is, how the Quran is asking for itself to be treated, which is in a conversation not just with unbelievers, not just with believers, but with unbelievers who it values more than people who say they're Muslims always, but they don't really have this. They're not. In other words, in relationship to criminal insidiousness, in relationship to the internation, forced nation, evidence fabrication, motivations, and natures of crime. See, these aren't let addressed because of the natures of crime and the motivations of crime, forced everyone pretending they're incapable of it at the surface level because they can't justify business standards and morality standards without lies or delusions, without punk moves backing up to lean on courts only let reach since before our nation's founded, not by accident, per methods, into science is only let realize. So we have to understand we're broke. We have to understand what's sacred. We have to understand what a parent, how he loves the children, our legal natures. We have to enable them to do that by being honest. But see, we can't do that because there's so many interests and methods of only letting, honesty accosted. In other words, there are very few people who aren't playing the what's good for business, keep your mouth shut narrative. And with that, with everyone playing that, then they have the self-defense of that. And with that, they have what comes through that constant evidence fabrication terror methods. Terror methods are really literally actively blocking the free speech of the streets, of all areas, to demonstrate what is not lawful, that is actively exploiting all areas, and worse, what is not love for us as our parent, as the law, as it should be. But it's not, it's not God even. It's not even trying to ratiocinate, which the only way you can realize what God wants is to is to be an actively developing in relationship to what is actively in diffusion. In other words, it's a process. And it's a nature of walls to our homes that is not these set up by colonization and by methods to have us with evidence fabrication methods that knew we'd be self-defending invested roles with this infrastructure and exploiting negative value nature progressions in relationship to it and blaming it on lies and delusions as evidence to her conviction nature tool roles for breaching methods, reactions to what stayed to all areas before. Even the terror laws were remembered as they were, how they were remembered, and with differential narratives, because they have only standardized ones with forced physical delusions and breaching insidiousness in relationship to psychology's agenda and litigate roles with litigation. Predatory litigation nature is only realized with our nations. So they bring up the serious things like wars, and they force that you either hate the name of Hitler or you don't make an opinion. In other words, when it was a more complicated thing tied to Joseph Mengele, but and it's also tied to our roles with terror, the same terror methods here, internation here too. We had all kinds of sick crimes that most people don't even know about, and then people who do know about it pretend they don't know about it. So everyone stays evidence fabrication natures, her conviction natures. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. We have to understand what, so if we can speak and keep it real, everyone's going to keep it real, but everyone's only allowed to do so for what is told practical, that is self-defeating and worse, predatory. Has roles, multi-front, to the obfuscation of the nature of facts treatments necessary to understand American history, any nation's history. And when we understand American history, we have to understand ancient history. We have to understand what the corruption came for, and with the evidence fabrication methods, we have to understand. Not just the hurt contrast that it wanted to only let realized capable of being understood. In other words, we have only let realized incomplete legal nature summary convictions of American history. American history is about an evidence fabrication method that was in place here before the nations that were the stewards of it, and to keep the nations as ours is kept now, the stewards of our own breaching role, as our own breaching army tool to an international evidence fabrication method that we all lost to because it was international science before it let legal natures realized. So it only let them realize the relationship to retreat as reactions relying upon expert lean and relying upon insidious database relationships to them they don't even understand. So, and not by accident. So one proof is when you look at the problems Flint, Michigan is facing, the odds with relationship to it, and the standards, and how they're just regressing and only being blamed on lies and delusions, and with mass indifferences, and with only realized incentives to exploit that, invested interest to exploit that, linguistically, with facts treatments, in relationship to justifications of law treatments in the past. So I'm not trying to judge anybody. I'm trying to say we lost on many fronts in the American Revolution. And all we have to do is admit this, and we can do it, and we can understand. And to say there's one God is because there's one book and there's one conversation. With another conversation, it's about another God. It's not to go fight and kill everyone. That's in relationship to again, because they don't let the nature of the organized crime that was forced terror on every nation understood They're still exploiting that not understood. And colleges are teaching to hate and what nations to love. And then they're blaming it on because this nation comes with, Israel comes with all kinds of money. And what is it called? I forgot what it's called. The lobbyists and stuff like that. It's all garbage. That's because they entertain that as evident as breaching nature rules with the language of the law, justifying and exploiting what is not really the law always, but it's criminally legalized. In other words, it's not real positive always. In other words, we're breached, but we need a method to overcome it. And we can do it real fast because everyone wants to overcome it. Nature wants to overcome it. But we can't do it real fast if we don't admit it. Put something down that's actively overcoming it. You know what I'm saying? And then everything that is not positive value that's in its way gets revealed. It even gets better. You know what I'm saying? That's why what the law could do if we could just free it. Please.